Hi there, and welcome to Roth and Aggie Reviews. I'm Kobe. Today we're going to be reviewing a 2014, 2015, depending what time it was really released, film called Unfriended, also known as Cybernatural. So this film is a horror film, it's a thriller, and it's also a really unusual film in the way it's made and the way the story develops. So, Unfriended is done through the use of Skype, and it's basically about a bunch of young people in high school seniors, so people aged 18, 17 years old, and they're discussing things that most young people discuss before prom and things like that. So the story is essentially about a girl named Laura Barnes who commits suicide because of an embarrassing video made of her getting drunk at a house party. And what happens is that she basically gets so drunk that she passes out, says really, embarrassing things and also rude things, and then she kind of basically soils herself. And it's all filmed, and it's posted on social media, YouTube and Facebook, and she gets picked on mercilessly for that. And then a couple of days later, she commits suicide. The video of her committing suicide is also on the internet. It's so pretty much everything to do with Laura Barnes, sort of, what word would you use? I mean, the last parts of her life and the worst parts of her life, all of those parts are on the internet for people to laugh at and make fun of. And one thing that should be mentioned is that Laura Barnes was a bully before that, and she was considered to be one of the worst bullies in the school. So a lot of people probably were motivated by vengeance and things like that to embarrass Laura. So after the video, we are kind of brought to this Skype conversation between two characters, a girl named Blair and a guy named Mitch. And they seem like a very nice couple. I mean, they're obviously boyfriend and girlfriend, and they're talking on Skype. And some of the other friends are invited to the Skype chat, and it's sort of the ultimate teenage foolishness of the characters that leads the characters into their downfall. The characters in this movie, all of them, in some way or another, really messed with Laura Barnes and messed with each other. Each other meaning the people who are all in the Skype chat. So the film goes from Laura Barnes to her exposing each one of the people in the Skype chat and showing them how bad they are to each other. Now, this could be done by Laura either through showing that they bullied Laura or by showing them how they were sneaking up behind each other's backs and, backstabbing each other, which leads to, the relationships of the people in the Skype chat to just really go down and hate each other in the end. So, yeah, this film is clever in many ways. First of all, the use of Skype to tell a story. A lot of people would think that you couldn't really do that, but this movie certainly shows you can. Is it really a horror film? Well, people say that it's not really a horror film, but I do think it is. It has elements of horror. But with that being said, is it the kind of movie that's going to terrify you and make you just want to stay in bed all the time and or the opposite, or you won't be able to sleep after watching this film? Most likely not, because this film, it's not really so much about the fear, but as much about the sadness of what people do to each other in this movie. How people can be so cruel, so thoughtless, and so insensitive to each other. That's the part that really makes this movie the horror, which is how young people can be treating each other like crap all the time. So let's talk about the film, where the strengths are. So the strengths in this film are that the acting is really good, and you actually feel these people are they really seem like the roles they play. There's a couple of characters that you actually, well, personally, I would think that these people actually remind me of some people I went to high school with. That in itself really makes the movie more realistic, because when I was watching the Skype conversation, let's say that I was, watching a documentary about people who, use Skype, and it was said, this is actual footage, and I'd be watching the movie, I would actually think it's real actual footage, because that's how well the acting goes. And I don't know if the movie was done in real time. I mean, I've heard somewhere that it was. And if it was indeed, then kudos to the director, actors, screenplay writer, screenwriter, all of the people that were involved, because it's really good. The movie does really portray Laura as the kind of mysterious entity, and I feel that the movie, again, like other horror films, kind of could have went a lot further with the story. It ends abruptly, and that's where I think the weakness is. And with that being said, I don't think it's a weakness really with the story. I just think it's a weakness that the ending was so quick. Now, the reasons why I feel it's not a weakness with the movies, because sometimes some studios might say, this movie can only be this long. In that case, I don't really have a problem with the story. I might have a problem with why the studio decided to make it short. Because in this film, obviously, it was well crafted, well executed, and good story. And I just think that because it was good in so many ways, as I just mentioned, it could have went a lot further. So I remember we talked about the gallows a couple of days ago, and about how I thought the story could have went a lot further. So I kind of feel the same way with this story. I kind of feel like there could have been maybe a prequel, like being done now, or maybe a sequel, which kind of talks about what happens, what really happened with Laura Barnes before. And I mean, what really happened with Laura Barnes before probably wouldn't really classify into a horror film. It would probably be more like a drama or a Mean Girls type of film. But then again, if you think about it, Carrie, right? Carrie is very similar to this film, because Carrie is essentially about a girl who gets, gets the crap bullied out of her, and then she gets revenge by doing all these crazy zombie type things. So this can be done with this film. Now, maybe they won't do it because there's not enough to go with that kind of storyline, because Laura Barnes really only gets those superpowers or abilities after the movie is, in this movie, so maybe there would have been no room for supernatural horror thing in the prequel. But then again, maybe not a prequel, but a sequel certainly should be done. I mean, and going back to the prequel, I mean, I'm not a movie maker, but I could certainly think that, there could be some brainstorming done with a prequel that could be done. But since I don't know that much about how to make a prequel based on this film, how about we talk about a sequel? Because a sequel could certainly be made. I mean, Laura could maybe be kind of going around other places, where people pick on each other. And, there could be like a mythology reveal that Laura Barnes is a type of spirit that used to be a bully and died because of bullying and now protects victims of bullying. And maybe the location, the location of the next film could be totally different. It doesn't have to be, high school Skype. It could be maybe in a news conference, or maybe business type of workplace bullying. I mean, there's so many possibilities with these films. And again, I just feel that they're kind of, horror films in general are just really given a hard time. Now, I wanted to talk about another thing with this film, is that a lot of the characters in this film really look a lot different in real life. I mean, I'm not really sure exactly when this movie was filmed, date-wise, but I do have a feeling that maybe it was in 2014. But anyways, the characters look totally different in the interviews after the film was released, and it's really funny when you listen to the actors talking about the movie, because you actually see, wow, not only do they look a lot older, but they're so mature, and they have an insight that a lot of people, even in their 20s, don't have. So it's really interesting how the characters in the movie really don't seem that similar at all to the actual actors. So that again portrays good acting, because acting is all about doing something, portraying someone you're not familiar with, but not always. I mean, and again, the other part of the movie that I find is very strong is that the soundtrack, I mean, there's not really a soundtrack, but there are these awkward silences when you know something bad's happening. For example, when Laura Barnes sent images to one of the characters, and then the character opens up the file, and you just see the shock, and you just see the empty, the silence, and all the other people in Skype are silent too, because they know that with each file being sent and opened, there's more and more, damning type of stuff being sent around. I think that's another strength. So with this film, I would say check it out. And I mean, I did mention a couple of pseudo spoiler type elements, but if you haven't seen this film and you're into horror and you're also a young person and you're really much into Skype and Facebook and social media, I would say check it out. So basically, if you're into horror and you're learning learning about social media, check this movie out because it's very very powerful. And also it's a bit like a cautionary tale. It's almost, in a sense, don't use Facebook, don't use Skype in this way, or this will happen. It's almost like a Little Red Riding Hood back in the days. Like, little kids shouldn't talk to the wolves, right? And this kind of story is the same. Obviously, the story wouldn't probably happen in real life. I mean, maybe it would happen, but probably most people here watching it don't believe in those type of things. But again, it's a kind of story that says don't bully people online, because one way or another it's going to come back and bite you. And that could be either done through, losing a job or not getting hired, or, Laura Barnes coming and getting you. Alright guys, I hope you like the resume. I hope you guys like the review, and all the best, and take care.